Will prosecutors actually seek the death penalty? For D4vd, David, otherwise known as David Anthony Burke, facing murder charges among several other charges for the murder and dismemberment of this little girl, who prosecutors say that he had a sexual relationship with. In court documents, there's mention of Plan B, there's sexual photos and other child sex abuse material on his devices, according to these prosecutors.
Again, to go back to that idea of the extraordinary steps he took to cover this up, he purchases a chainsaw online. He purchases an inflatable pool. The pool was used apparently as the mechanism to keep the area of wherever he cut up her body clean.
I have a very special guest on the program to help break down this latest information that just dropped in the case. He's a former prosecutor in the county of LA. He's also a former criminal defense attorney, and he's a host of a hit true crime podcast. You probably know who I'm talking about, Josh Ritter. We'll talk to him about the case, and will this even ever go to trial? What does justice look like for this little girl? But first, do me a favor. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, and share this episode with a friend. Let's bring the true crime family back together. Now the case against singer David. And here to help break it all down is a friend of the program, Josh Ritter, criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor, host of the hit true crime podcast. Hit the subscribe. It's in my show notes. The YouTube channel, Courtroom Confidential. Thank you so much for helping to break down this case, because you know what? This is happening in a courtroom that you know pretty well.
Yeah, it is. It's happening in a courtroom that I used to work in for just over 10 years in the DA's office. This is being handled downtown. So if you ever hear about the 9th floor alluded to when talking about a criminal case in Los Angeles, the 9th floor is it's short term for the important floor. It's where all the celebrity cases go, where all the what they call long cause cases go, anything dealing with the death penalty or really serious cases. It's all on this one floor. So you'll hear about, in fact, right now, we're talking about the David case. Literally across the hall, Nick Reiner's case is being handled. So a lot of these huge cases, if they're taking place in Los Angeles, are all on one floor in the criminal court building downtown.
And it's an extra layer of security. You've already gone through security maybe once or twice already. And then you go through that. You have to put your phone in a sleeve or a jacket and you can't touch it, so that they, basically they don't trust you. But because it is the celebrity cases, and there is so much security on that floor, and you were one of the top prosecutors in the office, and you know it so well. So I've been dying to get your thoughts on this case that you've been covering on your channel. And reading the documents, I don't think that I've ever really seen the words like vicious, murder, and horrifying spelled out the way that these prosecutors are in these documents that were just dumped.
Yeah, because you don't see it that way, because there's something going on behind the scenes. And I'm glad that you're talking about this. There's, to get a little inside baseball on all of this, there's a little bit of history between these attorneys. So you've got Beth Silverman, who's the prosecutor, and then you've got Blair Burke, who's the defense attorney. And they have had cases with each other before. They're both pillars in the criminal justice community in Los Angeles. They've been around for decades. They recently had the Monica Cementelli case, if you remember that, about she hired somebody to murder her husband. Blair was on the defense team. Beth Silverman did the prosecution. So I don't think there's any kind of love lost between these two. And then there was, if you remember when David was arraigned, Blair Burke, his attorney, kind of made this comment that was a little snarky. It was snarky as far as comments made by attorneys in court go, where she said, he wants his hearing immediately. This investigation has been conducted in secrecy and in the dark. And we want the world to see exactly how, he is, there you go. He is not the cause of her death. And I think if I know Beth well enough, and I've known her for a long time, she took that personally. And she said, okay, you want to know exactly what we've got on your client? I'm going to show you what we've got on your client. So she filed this brief, which does not exist. This is not a thing. She filed what's called a preliminary hearing brief. It's not asking for anything. Usually you file something in court, you're asking the judge to do anything. This is not asking the judge to do anything. This is just telling everybody, putting everybody on notice exactly what evidence they have against David. And I think that was kind of to put Blair Burke and her team on blast. Like, okay, you're calling us out. We're going to go ahead and let you know what we've got and see if you still want to play this game of chicken and head to prelim as quickly as you're saying you do. And then, of course, they asked for more time.
Yeah. And, we're going to hear from the defense. I want to get your point of view, a little bit inside baseball, hear more about this defense team. But let's get into the document that was filed because, we're talking, it's really gross. Kiddie pool, we're talking chainsaws, we're talking burn cage. And then there is the child sex abuse material, the plan B. There is lots of reference of sexual contact. It's very gross. But let's go into some of this evidence. And it also kind of lays out more of the motive. So in the documents, it says, despite being informed by law enforcement that the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone the defendant purchased so that he could stay in contact with her. So many things in just that paragraph. And also, people that don't know the LA area, Lake Elsinore is far. When we're talking about relation, it's probably, what would you say, at least an hour?
At least. Yeah.
Yeah. But what are your thoughts on that? That, he allegedly knew for quite some time that she was underage, and then he's going to a middle school for a burner phone.
Yeah. This was significant as far as the case goes, but it was also the first time we're hearing this type of information. This, I think, puts to rest the idea that she could have been this kind of starstruck groupie. I think that some people had speculated that maybe she was one of these hangers on that kind of wouldn't leave him alone. But no, he was fully pursuing her sexually, and doing it with full knowledge that she was underage. He met her at the age of 11, and he started to have this, I hesitate to use the word relationship, but I'm trying to keep it PG for YouTube. He had started this relationship with her when she was 13. This is clearly criminal activity. And then he's pursuing her, despite even efforts by her own family to try to keep them away. The reason he paid $1,000 to a fellow student to give her a phone was her family took her phone away, trying to keep her away from this guy. So he continues to pursue her. And even, we're going to get into it later, it sounds like the way he would get her to come out and visit him, because she's 13, doesn't have access to a vehicle, was he would pay for Uber rides to transport her, like you said, over an hour from Lake Elsinore to where he lived in the Hollywood Hills.
Yeah, definitely. If this isn't textbook grooming, then I don't know what is. And then, just so many things wrong with it. The document also says this: April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. There's a lot of digital evidence here, folks, in this case. The messages reveal that the victim's jealousy over the defendant's relationship with other women, as the defendant led her to believe that they had a future together. Gross on so many levels that, again, he's grooming her. And then it also talks about trips out of the country, I believe, and then also to other states to visit his family as he is engaging in this activity with her. And she's just a young girl. She's a kid.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was predatory. It was exploitive. He was taking advantage of her. It sounds like she truly loved him or thought so in her 14-year-old head, that she was going to have some sort of life with him. But that quote that you just showed there is so important, because one of the questions that we had before the prosecution released this document was, well, how do we know that this wasn't some sort of accidental death? Because people were wondering, maybe was it some sort of drug overdose? Then you get the medical examiner to say that no, she was stabbed. What led to all of this, and why are they charging this as first-degree murder with that special circumstance of lying in wait. Many people wondered, what does that mean, lying in wait? Well, here's what it means, played out in this document here, is that they had an argument. And now you're right, the digital evidence in this is going to become so pivotal. They had an argument, and we don't have those text messages, but summarized by the prosecution, it sounds like she's saying, I'm done with this. I'm going to let everybody know the relationship that we've been having, that you've been having sex with me and I'm a minor. He is got this musical career that's about to skyrocket. Literally 2 days after the murder allegedly takes place is when he releases his debut album. Knowing that, he tells her, come over and talk to me. Let's talk about this. They have this heated argument. And then that's the last time she's sending any kind of text messages, is after she apparently arrives at his home. Literally, they can chart the time that she was dropped off by the Uber, and a half hour later, he is texting her phone saying, where are you? And they believe that she died in that half hour period, that he was just already starting to lay cover for his alibi as to, some sort of claim that he's going to say she never showed up to his home. And they believe that he must have just attacked her as soon as she arrived inside of that home.
Yeah, and it goes into detail about how they believe that he attacked her and what he did during that gruesome process. We were just seeing more of the motive there, but then it also says this: in order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky fingers because her ring finger contained a tattoo of his name. We heard a lot about the tattoo and her having that when she was missing, and when all of this was initially breaking, and then there was a lot of talk about that, and now it makes more sense in the cover-up and in the motive. So she's threatening his career that is budding. He's going to explode, and then he's going about killing her, according to prosecutors, and then covering up by dismembering her.
Yeah. It's a very bizarre, disturbing, and disgusting dichotomy that's taking place here, because in some respects, he's taking great steps to try to cover his path. Like we said, he already kind of he's sending these text messages as a subterfuge that, he's still looking for her when everybody believes she's already dead. He's disposing of items up in Santa Barbara. He apparently, now we believe, he amputated her finger because she had a tattoo of his name. He's dismembering her. All of this stuff, is going great lengths to try to cover up a murder. And then he just packages her inside of the trunk of his vehicle and parks it 100-something yards away from his own home, and then just leaves it there. It's bizarre, because he took a lot of effort, and then it's like he just gave up, or his psychotic brain gave up on him, and he just abandons the car in a car registered in his own name, easily going to be detected, her body. Everybody's going to be able to piece this together later. And so when you start comparing the steps that he took, it's very bizarre.
We're hearing more also about the lengths that he went to try to dispose of her body, or the things that he did to her. So after placing her body in a blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor, the defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. Small blue plastic fragments were found embedded in the victim's remains. So it's just so disturbing. Like, I have to remove this from our screen right now. Like, just thinking about this. And then there is picture evidence that some investigators are posting, that he went to a party that night, that he was watching her bleed out, according to these court documents. And then there are pictures of him at a party, if the timeline holds up in court, that night. It's just, I don't think I've covered a case like this in a while.
No, I'm no psychologist. I don't know what a psychopath or a sociopath is, but I imagine it is the behavior of this individual. You're right. He's within hours of murdering her at a party. I've seen an interview that he did within days where he's just casually talking about his new tour and his album release. Yeah, they don't find her body until a few weeks later after the car has been abandoned in the neighborhood. The neighbors call. It's brought to a tow yard before that odor is discovered. And he's out on tour. He's moved on with his life. This guy is unflappable, and just his ability to just compartmentalize this and move on and become this performer is really staggering and chilling to think about what a psychopath, like I said, he was. And yeah, not to get too graphic about it, but again, to go back to that idea of the extraordinary steps he took to cover this up, he purchases a chainsaw online. He purchases an inflatable pool. The pool was used apparently as the mechanism to keep the area of wherever he cut up her body clean. But they were able to find at least part of that pool and the fragments of plastic from the pool that were also embedded in her body when they recovered her body. So this case is very buttoned up as far as it goes forensically. But again, it goes back to, the extraordinary effort that he took to try to dispose of her body. Even those Amazon purchases were made under a pseudonym. But then at the end of the day, he doesn't bury her out in the middle of nowhere. He leaves her in a car registered in his own name, parked just down the street from where he lived.
Yeah, it's shocking. And so now I want to pick your brain on the defense team and prosecutors and what we might see, right? So knowing what we know that was in the brief prepared by prosecutors, first off, what's your interaction with these prosecutors? What should we know about them? What should we be watching for?
Oh, Beth Silverman is probably, one of the most qualified prosecutors in that office. She's in a division called the Major Crimes Division. She's been there for 20-something years. Major Crimes is where all the major cases, all the high-profile cases are handled in the DA's office. She is, more than qualified to handle a case like this. She handles the most complicated and most serious cases in the office. And she has a reputation for being extremely aggressive and fearless. And she is not the type of person you want to cross. Blair Burke also has a reputation well established in the criminal defense community here in Los Angeles. She handles a lot of celebrity cases. This is, not to get too dramatic about it, but it's kind of a battle royale shaping up between these two attorneys. And I think the defense has really got their work cut out for them, because even in this brief, I know this is one-sided, and I know it doesn't present the defense side of all of this. And this is not really evidence. This is just what they intend to prove.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
But when we're looking at the charges here, now I'm going to play a little clip from Nathan Hochman, the DA there in Los Angeles. And then we're going to talk about the special circumstances and if you can decode the lawyer speak for us on this. Yeah. But let's watch it.
Evidence will be the witness testimony, the documents, and different types of admissible testimony that we will admit into court in the prosecution, and if it leads to the eventual trial of Mr. Burke, to convince a jury of 12 people beyond a reasonable doubt that each and every one of these charges is true, as well as the special allegations and circumstances that have been alleged. Now, back to this being a parent's nightmare. On April 23rd, 2025, as been alleged by the complaint, Celeste, a 14-year-old at that time, went to Mr. Burke's house in the Hollywood Hills. She was never heard from again. On September 8th, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, Miss Celeste remains, her dismembered and decomposed remains were found in 2 bags inside of a front trunk of a car registered to Mr. Burke. Thereafter began an investigation. The investigation was to determine who murdered Celeste months and months before. That investigation was carried out in unison and in partnership between the LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division and the district attorney's office. At every point in the investigation, through the arrest and the filing of charges, the LAPD and the district attorney's office have worked in lockstep. There's been no disagreements amongst these entities in deciding how to proceed with this case, ultimately leading to these charges today. So what you have as well with these charges is that, again, there are 3 sets of charges that have been brought. The first-degree murder with special circumstances, and again, those special circumstances are lying in wait. That Celeste went to Mr. Burke's home on the night of April 23rd, 2025, as alleged in the complaint, at his invitation, and again, was not heard from again. The second is a special circumstance being that this murder was committed for financial gain. As the evidence will show in court, the financial gain was for Mr. Burke to maintain his very lucrative musical career that Celeste was threatening on that particular night. The third charge, in addition to lying in wait and for financial gain, is murdering a witness to an investigation. In this particular case, as the evidence will come out in court, the witness to the investigation was Celeste. And the investigation was into the lewd and lascivious sexual acts committed by Mr. Burke that is the subject of count 2 of this complaint with Celeste while she was under 14 years old. These special circumstances carry with it, along with the first-degree murder charge, a maximum sentence of life without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. The determination on whether or not the district attorney's office will seek the death penalty will be made at a later time.
Okay, so for starters there, death penalty, California, is it likely, unlikely?
Well, I'd say it's more likely than you think that they will pursue it, given that Nathan Hochman ran on a platform of bringing back law and order to Los Angeles and kind of being pro-death penalty. I think this is a death penalty case for sure. I mean, if it doesn't mean they'll pursue it, but I think it absolutely qualifies. But then whether or not that he will actually ever receive the death penalty or actually end up on death row is another question that involves the governor and kind of the politics of California.
So the special circumstances as charged, they make more sense to me now after this preliminary brief.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, because it really outlines how they can prove it. If in fact, you know, it's presented before a jury, but that really gets it over the threshold, correct, in the state of California to meet the requirement for a death penalty?
Right. So you can have first degree murder in California and you're looking at 25 to life. But when you start to add what we call special circumstances in different jurisdictions, they call it aggravating circumstances, then you turn that murder, first degree murder, into a special circumstance murder, which makes that person eligible for the death penalty, but at the very least, life without parole. So that's what they've charged him with here, is 3 different special circumstances. And they only need to prove one, but they're the lying in wait, murder for financial gain, and murder of a witness. And Hochman kind of outlined it there, but like you said, in the brief, we get a better idea. The lying in wait was the luring her back to his home with the intent of murdering her. He was murdering her to advance his career or protect his career, probably more accurately, which is for financial gain. And then the murder of a witness, this doesn't necessarily mean that she's already been talking to anyone or there's an ongoing investigation, but that the reason he murdered her was to keep her quiet about criminal activity, the criminal activity being that he had been engaging in sexual activity with her as a minor.
Yeah, I think that kind of shocked everybody. And the reason that the defense said that they needed more time when they were kind of demanding an open to the public preliminary hearing. How dare you, you know, our client's being made an example of because he's a celebrity or whatever they were trying to say. But they, you know, it was interesting the way that they worded what they said in court. Let's be clear, the actual evidence in this case will show that David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and he was not the cause of her death. And then it made me think, okay, not knowing this other stuff, well, then who was? Like, did he know about it? Did he order it? Did, things of that nature. But, they made that, they kind of put that to bed also when they put in that document that he stood there and watched her bleed out in the kiddie pool. Yeah. And then these items are allegedly purchased by him under false names. So what are you doing if you're the defense team? You've worked both sides of the courtroom.
I think the defense is at this point trying to save his life as far as keeping him off death row.
So we've switched to I didn't do it.
So. I think so. I think that was a lot of kind of grandstanding and for the benefit of the media and perhaps for the benefit of their client. It's their first time appearing with him in court. They got to act brave and put on a bit of a show. But listen, the prosecution said they have 40 terabytes of information. They've been at this for 7 months. They've got a 7-month head start on the defense. They've already put it in front of a grand jury. So they've got several dozens of witnesses under sworn testimony already. They've got forensics. They've got digital evidence. They've got stuff that we don't even know about. This case is, even from the small amount sneak preview that we've been given, seems to me to be a very convincing case. I think what they're going to try to do at this point is perhaps attack some of those special circumstances, perhaps try to paint this as some sort of manslaughter type situation might be your best bet. Hey, it became very heated. I just wanted to speak with her. One thing led to another. I lost my mind in the heat of passion. And then, I disposed of her body, but that's not indicative of the idea that I pre-planned her murder. I think that's their best shot. I don't know if that's what they're going to go with as a defense, because that's conceding quite a bit and does land him in prison for a significant period of time. But, if they're still trying to sell the idea of he didn't do this, they've got a real uphill battle in front of them.
Yeah. And, I have about a minute of a clip that I want to play. And what they also do is they chime into distrust of the police and the establishment in the way that they phrase it, like, behind closed doors, in secret, which kind of makes me chuckle because grand juries are always done in secret. But let's watch that part.
From the media reports, apparently there have been 4 months of secret grand jury proceedings. We believe that Mr. Burke is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date on the 10th day. Your Honor, we believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death. And we would like to be able to have the evidence come into the light of day at the earliest opportunity in order to establish that.
So what are you expecting what do we not know about this defense team? What else could you share from behind the scenes, knowing all of the parties in the courtrooms?
Well, they're not cheap, I think, is one thing to keep in mind. So he, whatever money he had as a young artist, I don't know what his record deal was. I don't know what his family situation is. But I do know that Blair Burke is not cheap, and she's got a team of attorneys working on this. So there's a lot of resources being put into this. And you can understand, too, the man is literally fighting for his life. So he's probably going to put every last dime he can into this. And Blair Burke, like I said before, very well established, very well connected. But this is a difficult case for any attorney. I don't care how good you are. Or how long you've been doing this. This is going to be an extremely difficult case because a lot of resources have been put into this by the LAPD and the prosecutor's office as well.
Do you think that this pleads out? Do you think that we even see a trial?
I think if the prosecution is able to offer something short of first-degree murder with special circumstances, in other words, if they remove the special circumstances and turn it into a straightforward 25 to life, maybe some other bells and whistles for the use of a weapon and the mutilation of her body. And, maybe he's looking at several decades, but the idea that as a young person, he may perhaps one day see the outside of a courtroom, if they're willing to, or the outside of a prison, if they're willing to offer something like that, I could see him potentially taking it. But I could also see him saying, what's the difference to me if you're offering me 50 years or you're offering me life? I might as well take my chances and see if I can't, convince one or two jurors and get myself a better deal out of this thing.
Maybe he also likes the attention. Maybe he would like to be at a trial.
I always say this, whenever you try to read the mind of a person who's already committed a murder like this, good luck. Allegedly, right? You're right. Maybe he does. Maybe this is all fun to him. I don't know. Maybe he realizes his last shot at celebrity and fame. I don't know. Could be. I'll tell you this, from just kind of a spectator's perspective, and I hate to do that. I know this isn't games. This is people's lives. I think it would be a really interesting case to see it play out at trial.
Yeah, and clearly the defense, they want it in the public, so that's good. I believe that all courts should be open, no matter what, even to the highest level courts. I don't know why they're not. But so what does a ninth floor trial look like in this case? Do they bring in his lyrics? He had a song about Celeste. He had other songs that people have been talking about. What does a trial look like? There's going to be a lot of minors, because if even like this person that was referenced in the document was in middle school, right? Like,
no, you're right. It'll be long, first of all, because you're right. They're going to call in a lot of people who knew him, a lot of people that knew them and about their relationship. They need to establish that entire history, but then it's going to have probably days worth of forensic evidence presented just on the autopsy of her body, the advanced stage of decomposition, the idea that they were able to match the plastic from the pool to that recovered on her body, all of that forensic stuff. Then you've got all of the digital stuff that could take days and days to go through. It's going to be a very long and dense trial. Like we already said, they've got 40 terabytes worth of discovery, and I imagine a lot of that is useful information to them. And on the ninth floor, I don't think, to your question about the lyrics, I don't know if Beth Silverman's going to try to get that cute about it. She'll probably avoid it because she's got so much other strong evidence. But ninth floor, it's a floor that gets a lot of attention, as we talked about. I imagine we might see cameras in the courtroom. I hope that we do. I think it's an important case, and a lot of people are interested in it. But just to kind of set everybody's expectations, if that does happen, it probably won't be for some time down the road.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that next. Do you think that it's going to be like a year, 2 years down the road?
Yeah, I do. I know that everything seems to be moving so quickly. But once they get to prelim and they realize what they're up against and how serious this case is, I could see this dragging on for a period of time.
Anything else that you've been thinking about with this case?
One of the things that I see, a lot of people have been interested in this, and there's been a lot of speculation about how did a young girl like this end up in this situation? Where were her parents? Why weren't they involved? I think this just kind of demonstrates, there's a lot of young people who are very troubled, and a lot of young people who are runaways from home. They get taken advantage of by older, predators, exploited, led astray. I think it's a real horrible lesson in just what a dangerous world that we live in. And it sounds like her parents perhaps had limited resources and sophistication and were trying to do the best that they could. And never in a million years imagine this nightmare that they're living through right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is a nightmare. And God rest her soul. And I hope that she gets the justice that she deserves and her loved ones do. Josh, how can we get a hold of you? How can we follow you?
Oh, well, please check out Courtroom Confidential on YouTube. We've got, follow us on Instagram, follow us on X. But yeah, more than anything, we're big fans of the work that you're doing here, Matt. I've been a big fan of you for a long time over at Court TV, and I'm glad that you're continuing your work here on YouTube. And we've been following it very closely. And everybody who's listening, if you're not already, please come over to Courtroom Confidential and check us out.
Yeah, and I will see you at CrimeCon this year as well. So make sure that everyone, we have to wear our CC Crew shirts, and we just need to attack this guy right there and photobomb and take photos with him.
Love it. Look forward to it.
If you have any information in the case, please call the DA's office or the LAPD or Crime Stoppers. You can remain anonymous. I'll keep you updated on the case as it unfolds. Take care of yourself. We'll see you next time.